Good morning. We're just talking about recently, if you watch some of my morning moments, talking about be careful, little eyes, what you see. And it's so funny to me how you look around I guess we're losing this, but you go to bars, nightclubs, casinos, they've got an age limit of who can get in those doors and who can get inside. But now with some of the perversion that's going on, some of the trash that people are letting into our schools, obviously they've thrown out that, but there was a time there's age restrictions on movies, and because when we had a little decency in America, we understood that children don't have filters yet, and they can't filter out truth and reality and filth and shame and good and decent and and they were society as a whole felt like it was up to the parents. There's a parent's privilege to shape their child's moral compass. Then once things got sort of shaped and in the right place, then the child could maybe face some more difficult things and be able to filter out some of the garbage ideas, whether it be communism or immorality or whatever. I don't know if we've ever done a good job of that, but I wonder why would we even prior to today, where we've almost removed all filters from children. Children are they are exposed to every kind of perversion imaginable, um, by permission as well as by sneaking around. But I wonder, when do parents get careful what they see, and when are parents and adults, we're not exempt from being stupid. We're not exempt from being influenced. Whether otherwise, these $1 million commercials and Super Bowl and billboards up and down the freeways, those things wouldn't be there if we as adults are not influenced by what we see. And of course, what we see matters. And if you get around people where all they talk about is their medication and their aches and pains, and nobody's, everybody's a mess, and all you're going to think about is that it's going to create this mindset. Oh, that's why I want to stay as I'm older. I want to stay around young people. I want to be around life and people with babies, and thank God I don't have any. But I love babies. They're a lot of work, but I love having young couples over to our home, and I love going out on activities with young people. I love going to camp with our teenagers, and I don't run it all like I used to, but I'm there. I want to. I love the wisdom of the older people, but they're they can wear you out, and it. Just there's some people you know how it is. They don't get to talk to people a lot, and you get to them on the phone, and all you have to do is put it on speakerphone. You can go on about all your chores, and they'll be talking. You don't talk with them, you listen to them, and I'm not against that either. We know as we get older, things change, and the young people have no clue what's waiting for them. So let's don't tell them. Let's let them enjoy the craziness of youth, and we'll each face our own eras. But no matter, as soon as look at the number of pharmaceutical commercials on TV. Ask your doctor about this drug. Well, you know why that's on there? Because what we see affects us. Now, if you didn't hear my first part, well, be careful, little eyes, part one, then you might want to go back and find it. But just thinking about this, um, most of humanity gets their basic, the public opinion is what shapes most people's morals. And I don't mean just sexual morals. I mean the things that we count as good and bad, right and wrong. We're in a culture now where to get a sue somebody over, you get a bunch of insurance company money through you fell down at the grocery store. Well, it's the insurance company that paid for it. You hear that kind of thing enough, pretty soon it's okay to fraudulently get something from a business because you stumbled or whatever. The coffee at McDonald's was too hot, or I don't know. You heard about that many years ago. And we get where we accept things. See, the moral compass of a nation, it shifts, and as a child of God, the Bible should set our moral compass. Now, we can't change the world; it's a mess. You go like some of our missionaries in very primitive cultures, it's not uncommon for them for the females and males to be topless and to wear a loincloth. And young people growing up there, they see that, and that's what they would just consider acceptable because they've seen it. All their life, they've seen it. To nurse a baby in public, very acceptable in many cultures. We have this Judeo-Christian ethic, this Bible-based background that though everybody in our cultural history, political history was not saved, but they did have this thing. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light to my path. The entrance to thy word giveth light and life. The words that I speak to you, they are life. And so our culture, all of our founders knew the Bible, probably better than most preachers today know their Bible. And so we had a biblically based moral compass where private and indiscreet things, they weren't out public. They were private. And we always taught our children growing up, if you put clothes to cover it or you close the door when you're involved in it, then that's not stuff you talk about, let alone show or do in public. And somehow you got to help kids create boundaries, what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. But we have seen some of those primitive things that cultures that didn't have the Bible as the base of their culture, those Bible-less cultures are creeping into America. Why would, and I don't know how many of you ever see cartoons, but why would cartoon characters have such exaggerated anatomy, exposed anatomy, short skirts, skin-tight pants on girls? And little kids don't care about that stuff. But see, what the kids are seeing is beginning to set their moral compass, that this type of clothing or this type of behavior, these things are acceptable, because what we see gets into our head, into our heart, and it begins to shape what we are. Things that we used to say were inappropriate have become very appropriate in our culture. And there's some filthy and perverse things being talked about and debated. I'm not going to debate stupid. If somebody said, would you debate someone on the number of genders? No. Anybody that has half a brain knows there's boys and girls, there's men and women, there's cows and there's bulls, there's roosters and there's chickens. Everybody knows that. Anybody who wants to debate it has an agenda, or they don't have any brains at all. Everybody knows that. But the idea to get that debate going begins to have the young people growing up in, oh, well, maybe there is some question. No, there's no question about that. You go buy a papered chocolate lab that will be right on that paper. Is it a male or a female? And when I was just recently signing up for something in some app online, whatever it was, it had, are you a male or a female? Everybody knows that. But the culture that we're in, they just want to be able to debate it. The more it's talked about, the more it's in movies, the more it's in commercials, the more it's brought into things, it begins to shake those boundaries, because what we see does affect what we think and what we become. Our world of entertainment has trained us, our society, to be godless. You take Americans and you park them in front of the television from the Lucille Ball era, where there was Gilligan's Island and Andy Griffith and that world of 60s, late 50s, early 60s black and white TV. Get America comfortable watching TV every night after work and get that 2, 3, 4 hours of television in there. Well, then you begin to shift. Satan is called the prince and power of the air. And you get these directors and producers and writers to begin shifting the things that are being portrayed, and you put boys and girls and young people in front of that TV from childhood on up to adulthood, and then put their children in front of that TV from childhood to adulthood, and anybody knows where we are today on TV is a long way of perversion from Andy of Mayberry. And it's just this, oh, be careful, because see, the devil knows what we get into our eyes, what we get into our ears affects so much. And this is where I'm headed with this. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, if a nation that grew up that basically had dad and mom and the family at least regularly going to church, maybe not every Sunday, but church was a normal thing, that kids grew up knowing the basic stories of the Bible. They knew the basic principles of Jesus dying on the cross, heaven and hell, the Bible, the Word of God. They know about the resurrection. They know what Jesus did on the cross. Died. They might not have all been Christian, but the ambiance, the basic things. America knew those things. They, in fact, there are citywide revivals with Billy Sunday and early Billy Graham revivals. All the churches would participate because everybody believed at least the same basic things. And those kind of things were where our country came from. And so the kids grew up with church, basically, some church, maybe every week, maybe some just on occasion, but they all were familiar. And then take that generation or two of young people who grew up, and they grew up watching their dad read the Bible. The generation of kids growing up watching mom read the Bible. You take a generation of kids who see dad on Saturday night writing out a tithe check, or dad or mom studying their Sunday school lesson to teach the lesson on Sunday. And then Sunday morning, the family getting up and getting dressed and going off to church. That, what the kids see, these little children grow up seeing that, it affects a whole nation. Well, then you get dad saying amen in church and enjoying church and going home. Boy, that was a great message. Enjoy. I sure love getting to go to church with our Christian friends. That affects kids. Well, then you shift the next generation or two generations later, where Sunday is softball or soccer leagues for the kids, or working on our off-road vehicles, and the kids see dad mechanicing on Saturday and Sunday, and they see dad drinking beer with the neighbors sitting out in the backyard, cooking burgers and drinking beer. Well, that is going to change all of society. A society where the young people grew up with church-going moms and dads to a secular culture. It's changing society. And how does it happen? It's what kids see. It's what kids hear. We know you hear the kids watch dad cheering at a ball game or saying amen in church, or dad dozing off in church and excited about his favorite sports, or not even going to church. Those things that's a whole society. You want to know how to get our America back on track. We've got to change the things our kids see and the things our kids hear. And it needs to start with the home. It needs to start with a mom and a dad. And that's, of course, why the devil was so anti-home, why he'd love to have all the divorces, and he'd love to have single parenting. And I know we got single parents doing the best they can, but it would be better to have a mom and dad who wisely and spiritually put their home together and had a Christian home for those kids to grow up in. Most of the world today, they accept corrupt political leaders. That's all they've ever known. You talk to people in the Philippines, in Mexico, you talk to people across most of Europe, all they've known is corrupt political leaders. And so it doesn't surprise them that politicians are crooked. In fact, I think in the average home in most of the world, parents, if they thought, if my kids could get involved in politics and get in on some of the take, they'd be happy about it, because that's what government is. It's crooked. And if you are lucky enough to get in there and get some of that money, good for you. But see, America, we have this silly idea of the powers of the government are given from the people to them, that we allow them their authority. Americans' roots have got this idea that we can vote out people that we don't like in fair elections. And we got this idea that the leaders are the servants of the people. And just in the last 2 or 3 decades, we've seen courts and lawmakers completely ignoring the will of the people. And that was new. But see, let that keep happening, and we're going to have a turn in society where all of Americans just assume that's what government is. The government tells us what to do. Well, you may not understand it, but government is not here to tell us what to do. Government is here to protect the right for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No guarantee to be happy, but that we have the right to pursue happiness, our freedom, our life. The government is here to protect me from violent criminals or whatever. They're not here to tell me to wear a mask. That's not what it's talking about. They're not telling me a life and liberty. They're here to create an environment that would keep people from imprisoning me or enslaving me. And that's the basic purpose of government. Government's not supposed to tell us what to do. Government should be we're in a representative form of government. But you see what kids see. They see it all their life. And then they grow up in it. And then their kids grow up in it. And pretty soon we're just like the socialist countries around the world that are ruled by public opinion. And let's go back to where I started. Those primitive cultures that have no problem with topless moms and loincloth wearing moms and dads because the kids grew up in it. That is the devil's goal. If he could get us so godless, so without the Bible, that we literally have no discretion, no morals, no propriety, that wouldn't bother Satan at all. And by the way, one of our missionaries in a place like that in Vanuatu said when he'd come to a village and people would begin to get saved in the village, he said the first thing they'd want is clothing. Isn't that funny? The primitive cultures know when you get Jesus, you should be clothed. And they wanted something different. And we're going one direction while they're coming back the other. Oh, be careful. Be careful what you let your children see. Adults, let's be careful what we see. Because there's some very conservative men and women who have, because of too much TV and not enough conservative biblical input, because the moral compass of righteousness has been ignored, but that boob tube, that glass toilet that has gotten our mind, pretty soon, people who were once very conservative and moral according to biblical morality, they are now liberal and corrupt because what we see, Jeremiah 3, or Lamentations 3, mine eye affecteth my heart. Oh, let's be careful, little eyes, what we see.